Hi, everybody. Miss Kline again, and this time she's going to walk you through 5 levels of the Blockly game known as the Bird. And the Bird has a lot of math at the end levels that can be quite time consuming. So I just want you to do 5 levels because the purpose of this is to get used to the blocks and what they do. And then you can later on build much bigger programs with it. But this is just an introduction, so I don't want you to get buried into too deeply in any one of the programs because there's 8 different types I want you to experience. So on to the Bird. And when you see the bird is ready to go to its nest and it needs to pick up a worm along the way, this one is quite simple. You can see there's only one block and we have a heading of 45 degrees. Remember, the dial lets you choose, and then you click on the dial and then you click run. And if you want to pause after this and try the next one on your own before Ms. Kline walks you through the solution, go ahead and do that now. So in this one, you can see the bird is going to change direction. It's going to get the worm, and then it's going to turn and go to the nest. So the first thing we use is a conditional block. A conditional block asks if a set of conditions exists. If it's a certain way, we'll do this. If it's not this way, we'll do it differently. So at first, we don't have the worm. If the bird does not have the worm, we're going to head a heading of 0. Once it gets the worm, it no longer has this condition, and it's going to do the else condition. So else it's going to head 90 degrees. And again, in the dial, you can see that the dial points to what direction you want to go. Yay. So if you want to try number 3 before Ms. Kline shows you the solution, go ahead and pause the video. And now we'll do level 3. This time the bird is going for the worm. And again, we use a conditional. If this condition has not been met, which it hasn't, we don't have the worm yet, we're going to head at this heading, so 315 degrees. And then once it gets the worm, it no longer does this condition, it does the else. And it will change direction to 45 degrees. It looks a little off because the coordinates of the sprite, that's the moving object in the program, don't exactly match the little drawing. That's why it looks a little funny, and that's another reason why the math gets complicated later, because the little sprite is off a little bit, and sometimes it can be very time consuming to get the numbers exactly right. So you are ready for level 4. So pause the video if you want to try it on your own. Good job. So we're going to use a conditional again, but this time instead of the worm, we are just going to use a math phrase because we don't need to get the worm this time. So if you look at the x-axis along the bottom, so this is the coordinate plane, here's the y-axis. Let me put my indicator on. A little spotlight. So here is the x-axis along the bottom and the y-axis going vertically. So x is horizontal. So the bird wants to go to the x-coordinate of 80. So as long as x is less than 80, it will continue to head in the 0 heading. Once it gets to the 0, once it gets to 80 on the x-axis, it'll head the 270 straight down to the nest. Yay. So go ahead and pause the video now if you want to try number 5. And here's the solution to level 5. The bird is going to now monitor the y-axis, that's the vertical axis. Once it gets to 20, then it'll change its course. So if y is greater than 20, it will continue to head the 270 heading. Once it gets down to 20, it'll change its heading to 180 degrees. So it's an if, do, else. Sometimes you hear it if, then, else, but if, do, else. If this condition's met, it will do this. Otherwise, if this condition has already been met, it'll do the other. So it goes down to 20 on the y-axis, changes its heading to the nest. Good job. So we've done 5. That's all you need. I'm going to do a few more for you in case you want to try a few more. So pause the video, try level 6, and then Ms. Kline will walk you through the solution. So in this solution, number 6, we do need to see if we get the worm first. That's our condition. And we had to add another condition in here. So this conditional block needs an if, an else if, and an else. And usually the program will help you it'll tell you what blocks you need to add into the gear setting here. So once I've added, I've dragged the else if over like that, and then the else over, and I'm ready to go. Close the gear. If the bird doesn't have the worm, it will do this heading here, 330. Then it's going to check the y-axis. If the y is less than 80, which is where the nest is, it will head 90 degrees. If it's at 80, level 80 on the y-axis, then it will change its course and head 180. It's going to get the worm, change the heading to 90. Once it gets to the y-axis of 80, it's going to change its heading to 180. So if you'd like to try level 7, go ahead and pause the video and I'll walk you through that solution. So again, we have a conditional. This time we're going to do a mathematical formula, see what part of the y-axis we're on, and use that heading until we get to the y-axis of 50. So we're going to head down a little bit. And then check if we don't have the worm, it's going to head this heading to get the worm. And then it's going to, once it gets the worm, it'll do the else. So it solves, it's satisfying these conditions, and then it will do the final condition, the final heading. So it's heading to the y value of 50, doesn't have the worm, so it does that heading to get the worm, has the worm, now it does that heading. So very nice. And there's the job script that you wrote using the blocks. So go ahead and pause if you want to try level 8 on your own. This one's really involved. So this is why I was telling you that it's not that the math is too hard for you or me, but it's very time consuming and I want you to try all of the puzzles. So I'm going to leave that there for a second so you can see the solution and try it if you tried it on your own. There's one new block in here. You can ask for 2 conditions in this one. So does it have the X coordinate and the Y coordinate met? And that's what you just drag that little block right in there and it fits. And then you can add those two conditions. If this doesn't make sense to you, please don't worry about it. It's wonderful, but it's not necessary for what we're going to be doing. And then to level 9, again, this is another one that it has double conditions to be met each time. Doesn't have the worm and the x-axis is here. Doesn't have the worm and the y-axis is here. If the x and the y are matched here, we'll do this heading. And once they've met that, then it'll do the final one. So you can kind of see how it goes through these. So it's meeting each condition. Now it's got the worm. So now it's met the x and y, and now it can head to the nest. So the last one is hugely long, so I'm not going to put it up. It's way more than we need to do for what we're studying right now. So congratulations, you got through level 9, and anything you do after 5 is extra credit. So I just want you to get a taste of each one. Good job.